Thanks for joining us on Chicago Tonight. I'm Brandis Friedman. Here's what we're looking at. President Trump proposes 50-year mortgages, what that could mean for home ownership and the housing market. Mayor Johnson's proposal to impose a corporate head tax has faced pushback, but what about the youth employment and violence prevention programs it's intended to fund?
And some of them are extremely rare.
And a local coin collector started a treasure hunt for his neighbors, but plans abruptly changed when immigration enforcement ramped up. First off tonight, more than 600 people arrested as part of the Trump administration's immigration crackdown must be released from federal custody. That is the order from a federal judge in Chicago today. U.S. District Judge Jeffrey Cummings sided with attorneys from the National Immigration Justice Center and the ACLU who allege the more than 3,000 people rounded up by ICE agents is a violation of a 2022 settlement over warrantless arrests in the Chicago area. Government attorneys have until Friday to comb through a list of 615 people arrested and detained in facilities nationwide to see if they qualify for alternatives to detention while their immigration cases proceed. The judge said he would issue an order for their release next week and meanwhile temporarily pause deportation proceedings for anyone who might qualify for bond. Homeland Security spokesperson Tricia McLaughlin said in a statement that a, quote, activist judge is putting the lives of Americans directly at risk by ordering this release. House lawmakers are set to vote tonight to reopen the federal government. It comes after senators passed the legislation on Monday, with 8 Democrats joining Republicans to end the stalemate. House Republicans say they are confident they'll have the necessary votes. The legislation would extend most government funding until January 30th. It also includes 3 full-year funding bills for other parts of the government, but it does not address expiring health care tax credits, a focal point for Democrats. 6 candidates for various offices have pleaded not guilty to federal charges of interfering with immigration enforcement operations. The group, dubbed the Broadview Six, includes candidate Kat Abugazale, who's running to replace Jan Schakowsky in Illinois' 9th Congressional District. Prosecutors say the group surrounded a government vehicle outside ICE's Broadway facility on September 26th. You're looking at a video of the incident posted to Abugazale's social media account from that day. Also facing charges are Catherine Katz Sharp, who's running for the Cook County Board of Commissioners, 45th Ward Democratic Committee person Michael Rabbitt, Oak Park Village Board trustee Brian Straw, as well as Andre Martin and Jocelyn Walsh. And the latest candidate for Congress in Illinois says she has spent her career helping elected officials, and now she's ready to do the same for herself.
Educating and training over 4,000 elected officials across the United States. I help them not only win elections, but how to govern. Because it's one thing to get it to the table, but you've got to be effective. And so I've taught them how to write good policy, how to serve their constituents, how to bring real change to communities.
Patty Garcia, chief of staff to current 4th District Congressman Chuy Garcia, is running to replace her boss. Despite the shared last name, the two are not related. Surrounded by supporters, Garcia made the announcement from the grocery store in Cicero, where she says she got her first job. Outgoing Representative Chuy Garcia's timing has raised eyebrows, dropping his bid last minute to set the younger Garcia up for an uncontested primary. He has cited family and health reasons for the late change. From toxic landfill to a future park. That is quite the journey for a slice of land on the southeast side. The 43-acre site is set to become the future home of park number 608. That's a placeholder name for now. The lakefront property that sits adjacent to Calumet Park had been used as a disposal facility by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for polluted sediment. It's a big win for environmentalists and community members in the area. While the park's opening is still several years down the road, Park District officials today announced a $500,000 allocation to kick off the planning process for the park's future design and eventual opening. Up next, Americans could see the mortgage limit increase from 30 years to 50. That's right after this.
Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by the Alexandra and John Nichols family, the Polk Brothers Foundation, and the support of these donors.
President Donald Trump recently hinted on his social media platform Truth Social that he may push for 50-year mortgages. The current limit is 30 years. While the shift could lower monthly payments for home buyers, economists warn it could also saddle Americans with much higher interest costs over time. Joining us to discuss the pluses and minuses of a 50-year mortgage option is Dennis Rodkin, residential real estate reporter for Crane Chicago Business. Welcome back, Dennis. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Brandis. How are you?
Good, thank you. So, Bill Pulte, director of the Federal Housing Finance Agency, called Trump's idea to introduce a 50-year mortgage, quote, a complete game changer, and confirmed that the FHFA is working on such a proposal. Would a 50-year mortgage option make housing more affordable for buyers?
In the short term, sure. It would drop people's house payments. If you're buying a $200,000 house, you would probably pay about $113 less per month. $400,000 house, you'd pay about $300 less per month. I know that it sounds as if the one should be 2 times the other, but those figures are accurate. So you would be saving money in the short term, this month and each month you're paying. But over the course of the long term, as your introduction said, you would pay more because you would be, the interest rate covers a 50-year risk. So the lender is going to charge you more over time. The other problem, the other thing you're going to see in the math is in a house payment, in a 30-year mortgage, you're paying proportionally more interest than equity, than principal, most people call it, in the beginning, and those reverse over time. The amount of interest you're paying shrinks over time, and the amount of principal or equity you're paying grows. It would take far longer with a 50-year mortgage. You're now at 30 years, you get to the point where you're paying only principal. It would take far longer because you're paying for 2 decades more, so you'll have a smaller stake in that house.
So much longer to earn any equity. So let's have another example, because opponents warn, as you said, that you're going to pay much more interest over time. So CNN reports that a $450,000 home at 6.25% interest would cost $547,000 in interest over 30 years versus $1.02 million over 50 years, lowering monthly payments by about $300. Is that worth it if you're buying a house?
Well, one thing we should keep in mind is very few people would be in the house for 50 years to pay that entire total. Very few people are in the house for 30 years now to pay off that entire total. So a lot of people wouldn't be looking at that final amount. They would really be looking at, does this save me money now? I can't afford to buy a car. I can't afford, groceries are going up and everything else is going up. I've got student loan payments. What'll get me into a house now? So I think they will look at that as a savings because they're not looking 50 years down the line.
And if it takes you longer to earn that equity, so you don't have as much at first, if you have less equity, does that put homeowners at risk during a housing market downturn, which we know can happen?
Well, I don't know that it puts the homeowner at risk so much as it puts the lender at risk, because I have a small stake in my house. I may just let it go. I have not built up much equity, and there's a downturn. We saw this in the 2007, 2008 downturn. There were an awful lot of people who had taken out zero interest, zero down payment loans, very low down payment loans, and when the time came, they said, okay, then I'll let it go. And so the question would be, if you're paying so much more interest in those early years, because you're paying for 50 years, you don't have much of a stake. And if there is a crisis, whether it's a financial crisis or a crisis at home where you can't pay your own bills, you're much more likely, it appears, to give up on the house.
So if you never really fully own the house, right, over like a 50-year mortgage, how is that any different from renting? Why not just rent?
I have the very same question. It really, if you're not building up an equity stake, and you're not going to be there for 50 years to get to the point where, the 30-year mortgage is set up so that if you buy your house when you're, say, 30, you get to 60, you're on a fixed income shortly after that, you have your housing nailed down. But who's going to have paid off a 50-year mortgage? The average first-time buyer age now is 40. So you take out a 50-year
90.
mortgage, you're going to be 90 when finally you have free housing.
And don't worry about your kids needing to go to college in the meantime. We've got just a few seconds left. Let's talk a little bit about supply and demand. Could a 50-year mortgage, could that push prices higher without also boosting supply?
That is one of the concerns that people have, is that if we get this mortgage product while we still have very tight inventory and we're not building enough homes, not only in Chicago but nationwide, then yeah, I can afford more and I'm going to go ahead and bid up because I've got this 50-year mortgage. I have a lower payment, which means I can inch up a little bit and pay more. So yeah, I will bid more to get the few houses that are on the market unless we have a big influx of supply.
And of course, a lot more has to happen before this product could be introduced as far as going through all the regulatory bodies and all of that.
Right, yeah, this is not going to be available tomorrow. It's going to take,
What?
if it moves forward, it's going to take a while to get set up.
Okay, all right. Dennis Rodkin from Cranes, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Good to see you. Up next, Mayor Johnson's plan to fund youth programs with a corporate head tax. Budget hearings at City Hall are set to wrap up this week, and it appears there's no easy way to bridge the city's nearly $1.2 billion shortfall. Much of the debate over Mayor Brandon Johnson's budget proposal centers around his plan to impose a so-called corporate head tax on large companies. The plan's expected to generate $100 million to fund violence prevention and youth employment programs. Nearly $59 million of that would go to the city's Department of Family and Support Services. So joining us now with more are Angela Green, Commissioner of the city's Department of Family and Support Services, and Kathy Kulik, Deputy Commissioner of Youth Services. Thanks to you both for joining us. Welcome to Chicago Tonight. Commissioner Green, I know you've only been on the job for 3 long months, but remind us how these programs were funded until this point.
Historically, our youth development programs have been funded through our city budget. And now we're looking at other revenue streams because we need a sustainable revenue source for these programs that we know that work.
Why hasn't the city budget been sustainable until this point?
Well,
for this particular need.
For this particular need. And honestly, we see that there's a budget shortfall, and we had to bring in other revenue streams in order to meet that need. So we've had historic money in ARPA. As an example, you give some example of the impact of that one.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Green. So I think it's important to note that the one-time investment we had from the American Rescue Plan Act allowed us to pilot programs like the Youth Interventions Pathway that'll be funded by this corporate head tax. And programs like that are essential in our city. One, because it keeps us in compliance with the consent decree for CPD, but also it serves as a diversion and deflection model across the city. It also allowed us to pilot a program called My Shine, My Future Safe Spaces, where youth are able to come in, invite their peers in, plan events, and engage in safe spaces with trusting adults. It also allowed us to expand on existing programs like our service coordination and navigation program model that really takes youth of highest promise and connects them with wraparound services so that they can be the best that they can be. So, all of these programs continue to contribute to the 60-year low that we're seeing in violence this year. And as Commissioner Green said, it is vital that we find a way to sustain them.
And I do want to get to more into some of that programming that you mentioned and how it works and the results that we are hearing about it. But Commissioner Green, and we don't have to spend a whole lot of time on this because it's not technically your department, but why a head tax? It sounds like is there no other way to generate this revenue to fund these programs?
Well, I will say I'll leave that to the electeds to find other ways to generate the funding. But the reason why we really need this money, we know that our corporations just received a federal tax break. At the same time, we're seeing many of our families struggle with food insecurity with the SNAP pause, and possibly even with healthcare access might be another issue. So we actually need everyone to kind of join in and support our most vulnerable populations. And our youth diversion program, our youth employment program, really help to support our are youth of high promise, those that are trying to really gauge and move through our city and find a way forward. And so this is a way that our corporations can take part in that. We need that support. It's not really a charity, and it's not even a penalty. It's really them investing back into the city that has so much promise, and then also actually investing in their future workforce, because we hope these youth may become the next CEO or their social influencer, right?
Commissioner Kulik, or Deputy Commissioner Kulik, you all are proposing $48.9 million alone for youth employment programming. How would that work?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So we have 5 program models for youth employment, and along with sister city agencies, we run one of the largest youth employment summer programs, where just this year alone we had over 53,000 youth apply for One Summer Chicago jobs, and we were able to hire more than 31,000 of those youth. So just being able to, like Commissioner Green just said, just invest in our youth to be able to make sure that they have the skills, the support, and the emotional and mental wellness that they need to have employment.
Overall, we know that violent crime is down 23%, homicides down 29%, and overall shootings in the city down 36%. What do we know about the impact of youth programming on public safety, but also the economy and the young people who get those jobs?
Well, we definitely know that the programs that we have actually give youth be able to divert from system involvement. We know that giving them positive outcomes and positive outlets for them to be able to get involved in helps to reduce violent crime. We saw from United States Joint Economic Commission report, they studied the youth that were involved in our employment programs here in the city, and they saw that 43% of those that were involved in employment actually were less than likely to be involved in any type of violent crime. Almost 80% of them were not involved in any shooting or arrested for anything of that nature. So we see from the data that it actually works.
To that point, you know, another $5.2 million you all are proposing in this budget, that would go towards violence reduction funding. Why such a big difference in the 48.9, nearly 50, nearly 49 million versus the 5 million for violence reduction?
Yeah, well, we see that there's a lot of efforts happening in the CVI community right now that focus on adults. So we want to just make sure that we're doing our part and, again, investing in the youth. And having some type of programs and models that mirror what's happening in the CVI community for those that are 18 and under. So, you know, in addition to the 48 million, I think it's important to note that even employment programs do help reduce violence. So giving youth an opportunity to pick up a job when we're asking them to put down a gun is what it's about.
A city report, one that you all, the summer youth impact report that you all just released last month, shows that over the summer, more than 31,000 youth were employed through DFSS jobs, also finding another 2.84 million hours of work experience. $30.8 million were provided for youth aged 16 to 24. Youth service programming also served over 108,000 residents through more than 150 community-based organizations citywide. Commissioner or Deputy Commissioner, what are the long-term returns for investing in youth employment? What do we get in the long run?
Yeah, I think that the first thing that we would get is just youth that are more prepared for the workforce. We had 95% of our youth participants that said that they now feel that they are somebody that can be successful in a job. It also allows us to just have a safer community. When the city is safer, everybody wins. Businesses win, residents win, youth win, and they're set up for success.
Yeah, but you also think about the skills that they're developing, especially like with safe spaces. We're seeing youth actually organize events, so becoming community organizers. They're leading, they're engaging other youth in positive activities. And so to see what has come out of that, they're feeling safer in their communities. These are positive outcomes that sometimes you don't have a dollar amount to because the impact is long-standing.
And to be clear, these programs that you mentioned, for example, the Service Coordination Navigation Program, SCAN, Community Safety and Engagement Peacekeeping Program, the Youth Interventions Pathway that you mentioned earlier. Does the city partner with community-based organizations to grant this money out to supply this programming?
Yes, that is mainly what we do. Is we fund community-based organizations that are positioned best to serve our youth and meet them where they are, and then we work with them to be able to make sure that those dollars, that they're being good stewards of those dollars, and that funding is just creating as much impact across the city as it can.
All that said, of course, you got to pay for it. Commissioner Green, how else could corporations contribute if not a head tax? Just last week on this program, the Hospitality Business Association of Chicago says that many of those corporations are already contributing to the mayor's employment programs, and some of them obviously oppose the head tax. How else could they be supportive of Chicago's youth?
Well, we definitely want our corporations to continue to be a part of employing our youth through our summer youth program. And there are other ways that can become corporate sponsors of our programs. There are actually ways that we would love to, as she mentioned earlier, we had 53,000 youth that applied. We would love to have more slots to be able to hire those individuals. So there's definitely opportunity for them to connect at a stronger level with us.
Okay, of course, we'll keep an eye on this as the budget process continues. My thanks to the two of you for joining us. DFSS Commissioner Angela Green, Deputy Commissioner of Youth Services Kathy Kulik. Thanks to you both.
Appreciate it.
And we're back right after this. A local coin collector recently set out to connect with his community, which he accomplished, but it cost him a few cents. The Rogers Park resident started a scavenger hunt style game, hiding coins around the neighborhood and posting clues on social media. But ongoing aggressive federal immigration enforcement in the city made the numismatist decide to change course.
On the obverse, which is the front of the coin, you've got the bust of Lady Liberty.
That's John Martin, a local coin collector, also known as a numismatist, showing off one of his many early American coins from his personal collection.
And some of them are extremely rare. There's less than 100 of these in the world.
When we first met Martin back in September, he had decided to share his love of coins with his neighbors in Rogers Park. So he started a literal treasure hunt. He hid the coins around his community, in alleyways and little free libraries at St. Ignatius Church, leaving clues of their whereabouts on the social media platform Nextdoor. The coin hunt became a major hit.
I kind of expected most of the interest to be older guys because, that's usually the demographic of people who collect, especially this era of coinage. But no, there was young people of all ages, college students, moms, dads, a guy who runs a store up here near Howard. It's been really cool how broad the appeal has been. I was surprised by that.
Martin started his collection 20 years ago.
It's always awesome to be able to hold a piece of history in your hands, especially something that was used on a regular basis by people 100, 200 years ago.
He estimates he has some 600 coins.
I've got 4 1804 Great Bust half cents, and none of them are alike. In fact, these are all dramatically different, but there's several others that are just infinitesimally small difference between them.
Martin released 6 coins with the goal of giving away a total of 10 before the year ended. But then plans changed. Rogers Park became one of the communities hit by ramped-up federal immigration enforcement. After seeing the fear and concern in his neighborhood, Martin put the coin hunt on pause.
It's gut-wrenching. You'd have to be an idiot not to recognize that what's going on is just evil. You don't go rounding up children or rounding up parents in front of their children or even kids themselves. You don't go harassing neighborhoods, people who are at work, going into business, scaring the, bejesus out of people for no reason other than to make a political statement, and it's not even a good one.
Rogers Park is one of the most diverse neighborhoods in Chicago, with more than 60 different languages spoken in the area. Nearly 25% of residents were born in a different country.
Everyone and from everywhere lives here, and it's one of the reasons I like it so much. Yeah, we all know exactly why they target this neighborhood. Especially west of Clark. You've got working class people of every sort just across Clark. And, don't get angry. It is infuriating because it's like, what are we supposed to do? As much as I enjoy doing the coin hunt and getting to interact with people in my neighborhood, it's not worth it to put anybody at risk for it. So I had originally intended to just postpone it and I had put up a post about that, and there was a handful of unpleasant people who responded, and I decided to just go ahead and cancel it after that.
Martin has thought about giving away his last 4 coins to Chicagoans who've been illegally apprehended and then released by ICE, but he's still considering the best way to spend the remaining silver.
I've still got them, and I'd still like to give them away. I'm not entirely sure what I want to do about that. I was thinking of just, if I see a random neighbor, here you go. But then again, if they hadn't heard about it, then I'm just a random strange man approaching people on the street. Yeah, I don't know. Any ideas?
For Chicago Tonight, I'm Shelby Hawkins.
Martin is open to possibly starting the treasure hunt up again next year, or once he believes it's safe for his neighbors. And that's our show for this Wednesday night. Be sure to sign up for our free email newsletter, The Daily Chicagoan, at WTTW.com/newsletter. And join us tomorrow night at 5:30 and 10. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, I'm Brandis Friedman. Thank you for watching. Stay healthy and safe, and have a good night.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a Chicago personal injury and wrongful death firm that gives back to its community in Chicago and beyond.